again was one of the hardest things I've ever done, like not just mentally and being alone and stuff, but physically was tough. Back then I wasn't not very fit, and if I have to go into really the deep dive in the story, I cried, I think, like when I had really, really bad altitude sickness and I was lost. So I wouldn't really recommend anyone to do that. All right, welcome to another episode of Clean Your Toilet podcast. My name is Randall. I'm the founder of Books Beyond Borders, and today we have Brenda with me on the podcast. And maybe Brenda, you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us as well. I'm Brenda from the Facilitators Project. So what we do, maybe everyone is a bit curious, what exactly is Facilitators Project? So we are a social enterprise. We started as a social enterprise this year, but how it actually started was really a group of volunteers 10 years ago. So what do? The word facilitate means we facilitate programs for the underserved communities where it's not spoken. And we run programs weekly for the last 10 years. So this year, we turn it to a social enterprise because we need to understand that we need to sustain as a social enterprise.
Okay, great. This looks like there's a lot that I can potentially learn from because we are essentially a social enterprise as well. And we transited actually from a charity when I first started the bookstore. So I run a bookstore, and eventually after learning about how social enterprises work, we decided to transit to that as well. So I think I'm quite interested to hear a little bit about your experience on, going on this journey together. So today's theme is, I believe it's the theme for this season is centered around the stories we don't tell. And I quite excited to share a little bit because the founding of my story of the brand, Books Beyond Borders. So I run Books Beyond Borders. It's a bookstore, and we collect and sell used books, and then we donate part of our proceeds to support like girls' education in Nepal. So people will ask me, why books? Why Nepal? And a lot of that actually is about my own personal story, which, I get to share some with you later. But maybe I want to throw the ball to you first.
Sure.
And, get to learn a little bit about your social enterprise. And maybe let's start with like what were you doing before this, and what kind of like transpired this journey to starting the Facilitator Project. The Facilitator Project, is that what it's called?
Yeah, so we call it TFP for short.
Okay.
I think that's easier.
Yeah.
Because Facilitators Project is quite mouthful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, my background, I'm from the corporate. Yeah, I've been in a corporate for more than 20 years, basically doing investor relations for listed companies, working in banks. So that's where my background is, right? So curious about like why you said that I'm in the social enterprise space. I've been volunteering because I always believe that children are our future, right? And there's always this unspoken group of marginalized people that really needs help. I think in Singapore, there are a lot of cracks that we have not seen from our perspective as a Singaporean, because how bad can it be, right? Singapore, we are all provided for. There's always funding for us, and it seems that it's always well-funded. But besides being well-funded, what goes beneath it is very important. For example, education, right? We all go to school, right? And then we'll just go through the normal mainstream. But what comes that for them, especially the marginalized group? Because what we serve is the sheltered homes. So sheltered homes can mean there's a lot of hidden stories behind it. And what do they do after that, right? They go to school, finish, and that's it. Run around, play around. Can they actually use what they have studied and apply in their daily concepts? So that's how Facilitators Project, TFP, actually work very closely. We run every week for the past 10 years.
10 years?
Yes.
Wow, okay. I thought you just started this year.
So 10 years as a voluntary group.
I see. Okay, okay. So it's been 10 years since this has been around for, but only this year that you actually kind of formally kind of look like registered as a social enterprise.
Yes, correct. So I'm not the founder
Okay.
myself. I work very closely with the two co-founders. So I was a volunteer with them for the past 3 years, right? So being in it and running almost every week kind of set me grounded and saying that, yes, this is what I really want to go into. Prior to that, yes, I've done other volunteering as well, mainly for girls, I would say, or the youth, because they are our future. Right? I'm not saying that the seniors are not doing anything, but I think they have another pool of people that they are helping them. With that, so the co-founder, there's a synergy. We decide to say, okay, let's come together and be a social enterprise. Why? Because it has been always self-funded, right? Volunteer groups. Volunteers are good to have. Volunteers sometimes is only a one-time off, right? But we want to train our facilitators so that it can be, there's longevity. We can sustain all our trainers. And as a social enterprise, we want to compensate them as well. Because we believe in what they do and we know that they have a heart to do it. I think that's important. Right. If you get volunteers, the retention rate is actually very low. Yeah. And it's only sometimes just a one-off. But when you serve an organization for 10 years, they see you every day or every week, right? They get familiar with you. And especially for certain homes, they may feel that they have been abandoned if you just come once. So it's about longevity. I think same for you, why you build a social enterprise.
Right. And just curious, like is it only this year that you decide to leave your job and then go into this? Are you doing it full time?
Now it's kind of full time.
Full time?
Yes. Yeah.
Why?
Professional job.
Why did you decide to leave your corporate job and then move into this full time?
I guess it's also, we just feel that it's about time now. Yeah, there's no like when should you leave and when should you not leave, right? When you feel that you're ready, I think that's where I've stepped in right now. Yeah, to just spend more time to do it. Yeah, and meaningfully lah. Yeah.
Because for me, when I first went to this journey, I wouldn't say corporate, I was in a startup, but like 9 to 5 and stuff like that. And after going on to do what I do right now, I think one of the biggest thing that has impacted are like my financials. And that, I think back then I was a bit younger, so it didn't felt like such a big impact. But along the years, I realized that it's still very important to make sure that I get paid well, and because I have my own life and stuff like that. I was just very curious to know like how you was willing to give up, that paycheck and then move. Obviously, the social enterprise, I'm sure that you get compensated in some way, one way or another, but I don't think that you can compare to what you were receiving before, right? Like I think was that purpose more outweigh like kind of that financial aspect, that comfort that you are willing to give up?
I think partially, you can say that. But being realistic in Singapore, you still have to pay your bills, right?
Yeah.
So right now, we started as this journey. So it's still a very tiny step. You're right to say that should it be compensated? Is it really outweigh? Yes, it outweighs the financial part. But at the same time, I think that does not mean it stops you from doing a bit of corporate job. Yeah, or something that you want to pay your bills, right? So we all need to maybe be fractional workers as well. And every job is very important, right? Be it whatever. Even if one day you see me in McDonald's, don't be surprised, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because you still have to, every job is important, right? And that's where you can come in and really understand every individual better, right? Their circumstances as well. Yeah, even as a social enterprise, right? You want to facilitate. But when you're on the other side, Yeah, you kind of understand.
So how exactly are you like covering your own finances? Because like it's very useful for me right now as a founder of a social enterprise. I struggle even until today. I've been running for 5 years already. I still struggle to keep myself afloat, and I can share with you like some of the things that people don't know about what I do. Apart from on the surface, I run a bookstore, right? But over the years, I actually did so many weird things that people probably don't know to like make ends meet and pay the bills. So like for you, I know it's it's a new journey, but what are some of the things that you do on the side that you can get to pay the bills a little bit here and there?
I for myself to pay the bills, maybe it is. I'm a forest school coach, so I coach kids in the forest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like outdoor classes?
Kind of like outdoor classes.
Right.
It's a child-led program.
Okay.
So that's one part of a weekly program that I do as something that I also want to give back to all the kids, right? On the corporate side, I'm doing a bit of M&A as well because it's something that I still like. And I think the connection with corporate world is also important in our social enterprise setting. Yeah, and it's something that I really enjoy given that I have a bit of background in the finance. So I've just started this M&A as well as part of my continuing in the corporate world.
Right. Okay. I think similar as me as well, when I first started Books Beyond Borders, as I mentioned to you guys, when I first started the bookstore, it was an interesting journey. So maybe I share with you a little bit about, so you have a little bit more context, right? How this whole mission started. So I'm the founder. I always have this personal mantra to do one thing that scares me every year. I was having like that anxiety when I was, I grew up being a major introvert. So again, if you were to ask me to come to a podcast like that with cameras and lights and all over, I would have said no, back then. But I've done a lot of inner work, and I think my journey really started in 2018 when I told one of my good friends, Andrew. I said, hey, I had anxiety. I really don't like the life I did. I had a lot of vices that I wasn't proud of. And I told him like the next year I'm going to do like 10 different things to like 10 different New Year resolutions. I want to, improve my life. I want to, stop partying and this and that. And then he gave me a book on Christmas, I remember. And on the front page of the book, he wrote like, hey, Randall, I really admire you. I challenge you to do one thing that scares you next year. Instead of, doing all these resolutions which usually don't work, why don't you do one thing that scares you? And I took that personal challenge so personally that I went to Google and I searched what's the hardest thing you can ever, do. And I found out that if you're willing to walk 2 weeks in the Himalayas, you can actually see Mount Everest. So that's what I did. I packed my bag, booked a one-way flight to Nepal, and then went on a trek to Everest Base Camp alone. Back then, I've never experienced winter. I've never hiked in my life before. And I, again, was one of the hardest things I've ever done, like not just mentally and being alone and stuff, but physically was tough. Back then I wasn't, not very fit. And, if I have to go into really the deep dive in the story, I cried, I think like when I had really, really bad altitude sickness and I was lost. So I wouldn't really recommend anyone to do that. But anyway, I got there, was trying to do a little bit of soul searching, finding myself, but I happened then to see a lot of kids out of school working in backbreaking jobs with little to no pay. And I just thought that, I'm going to come back to Singapore. I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to dedicate one entire year to just raise money for them. Back then, I had a little bit of savings. And when I got back, I also needed an excuse not to bum around and just, I think it was a nice little mission that I gave myself that, I want to do some good during this year. But actually, right, I just needed an excuse, again, like I mentioned, not to, and tell my boss, like, I want to quit my job and, do something meaningful. So I left my job, spent 1 year doing everything that I could to raise money. I baked cookies. I gave out my birthdays. On my 27th birthday, I remember that back then, I asked my friends not to give me any gifts or money or ang pao, just give me like $27 for my fundraising campaign. We raised money, and then we would use all the money to buy like bags and books for kids over in Nepal. And I was doing that for one entire year. And, I mentioned earlier that when I first started Books Beyond Borders, it was, I run it like a charity. I have absolutely no idea that there was this thing called social enterprise. I remembered I only had like I can't remember, like $10,000 in my bank. That's like my life saving back then. Yeah, I'm not a good saver. And then I would, just spend all my money figuring out how to raise money. And I gave 100% of all our money away. So if, I were to, if you were to donate like $10 to us, we would give like $10 away. Like I, didn't have any money for administrative costs, operational costs. I was running that for 2 years, and along the next 2 years, we actually funded a lot of like classroom projects in Nepal. We helped set up school libraries, we helped train teachers and stuff like that. But over time, I realized that it was not sustainable for me. Like I remember there was one we raised $10,000 for a school library, and we desperately needed money to pay like some akra, like if you do like your own akra and stuff, every year they ask you to pay some money, right?
Yeah.
You have to pay some tax, and then you get the accountant and all this kind of stuff. We didn't have money to do that, and I couldn't use our donation money to do that because of the pledge that we put in to use not to touch like our donors' money. And I think because of that, it really made me realize that I needed to find other ways and means to make money out of it. And, along the years, I've shared before that I actually sold like pet treats before on the sideline. I did like help people build some websites, did some graphic work and stuff like that. It was really, I think like 3 years down the road that I learned about that there's this thing called social enterprise where you sit in between a for-profit entity and a non-profit entity, and you can actually make your own money, and that's how I kind of figure out like we wanted actually to be a social enterprise. And even until today I still struggle to like balance it, like doing good and making sure that I'm not my bank does not deplete, because sometimes I feel like, when you're out there doing social enterprise work and stuff, you have the expectation that you cannot earn a lot, or you cannot like make a lot of money, you know what I mean? Do you actually have that? Okay, I don't know about your goals and stuff like that. So for me, okay, I share with you what my goal. Although I'm in the social work, right? We donate part of our proceeds to fund girls' education and stuff like that. I do want to lead a comfortable life, and I feel like in the very early years of me running Books Member, I was very afraid to tell people that. But I do want a nice house. I want to be able to take care of. I don't want the big supercars and stuff like that. But I always tell my wife, I wish one day I could live in a landed. That's not my goal in life. But sometimes I also feel afraid to share the goal, especially if I'm big on social media and stuff like that, because people have the perception that, hey, if you're in the social space, you're in the social work, you cannot,
you cannot do this, you cannot
do
this,
that, and right? you cannot have lofty goals like that. Does it affect you in one way or another?
It does, because I think the perception of whether be it charity or any social work that you do, even volunteers, right? How people look at us is, okay, I'm sure you got money, right? That's why you can do that, right? I think that's the perception, and it's either you're retired, you got a lot of money, you came from a wealthy family, therefore you have the luxury to do that. I think that's the misconception that a lot of people will have, right? Sometimes. And for non-profit organization, maybe it's always about like people having grants. For me, social enterprise, yes, when you tell people, oh yeah, sure, I still need to pay the bills. I still want to I don't need a landed property maybe. Yeah, but I need to have a okay life, right? I can survive, I can pay my bills. I can still maybe once in a while go for my holidays, right? Because we are still humans, right? Yeah. These are all our needs that we really want. And yeah, people will look at, you sure or not? What if I give you the money and that's it, right? And I think for us, we struggle. For me, I'm not sure about you, like when you struggle, right? Because social enterprise, when people donate to you, there's no rebate.
Yeah.
Right? There's no, what you call a tax rebate, right? So then what's next? So the trust that people will not have on you at times, because it's always a question mark. And in Singapore, I think a lot of people doesn't know what really social enterprise is.
Yeah. I think it's quite a new term.
There's a struggle, right? Yeah, because social enterprise, yes, the word social comes first, but actually the enterprise must come first. It's just that everyone wants to sustain. For a lot of people, because they are in a 9 to 5 job, they kind of know like, okay lah, I know they are paid every month. Right? For social enterprise, we have to think how to get paid every month. Right? While still doing good. I think that's a struggle I do have as well. Yeah, for the last 10 years, even as the co-founders, when they start all this initiative, we are all not paid, right? We are all bootstrapping. Yeah. Even now, being a social enterprise that we've started, we're kind of still not paid. Right? We still have to bootstrap. That's why I think you're right. How do we get ourselves paid? And it's okay to say that we need to get paid. Yeah, and that's the reason why I think we decide to go on the social enterprise route rather than a charity route.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Do you guys depend on like donations?
What kind of donations?
Like charitable donation. Like, can someone donate to like whatever project that you guys do?
Yeah, because we run programs.
Okay.
So when we run programs, we would like to have someone to support the programs, right? At least to cover certain costs.
Sure.
Yeah.
And most of your programs funded by donations?
No, sometimes we self-fund.
Oh, you're self-fund lah. Are there any activities you guys do that you all actually make the money?
Public programs, because we've done trainings.
Okay, right. Like workshops and classes and stuff like that.
So that's the part that we have to, revamp ourselves, and it's constant changing, because there's a need to change, right? So if you don't, then you kind of like obsolete, right? And then we can't sustain. I think that's important, and it's very unspoken, right? Because everyone would think that donations what. Right? Ask for grants, but how long can grants last? Grants has a certain KPIs that we all need to, and after that, what comes next? I think that's something that not everyone will know. Yeah.
What's I think again something I'm always curious is for somebody who's in the social enterprise space is that when you took the leap from corporate to moving to the role right now, were there any were you afraid of any how your friends, your families perceive or view your career choice, or was that not an issue for you? Because for me, when I took the leap from corporate to doing what I do right now, back then a charity, I think one of my greatest fear was how other people would perceive what I'm doing, coming from a tech startup, I get to look at spreadsheets every day, and I get to, go to PowerPoints and big meetings, and, with probably a good, more visible career pathway than leaving my job and pack used books like a Kalanguni in my, in my bedroom. I think at that stage, I was really very, worried about how other people would view me. For you, especially right now, you are in your later stage of your career, right? Is there something that you were concerned about, or you kind of have reached to a point where you're I don't really care what other people think about me, and I just do what I love?
I think initially, yes. It's how would people look at me, right? It's okay, and when you talk to friends, people will ask you, right? Oh, what do you do? And when you start to share, they'll go okay, that means you got retired fund, right? I mean, that's how people will look at you, right? You have enough to get by. So as along the way, I think it's still a bit of struggle, I would say, to see how people perceive you. Right. And for me, I think my journey in this social enterprise do see some supporters as well. I mean, they're the good and the bad, right? I mean, people who cannot resonate, you can't force them. In a social enterprise, when I first came in, right? People will look at me and say that, are you sure, right? Is this what you want? What do you need to leave your corporate world? Then how will you get paid? Are you sure this is really what you want? I think how they look at it is because you're doing a charity organization, right? And you will be well fed, or you're taken care of. That's one. Or you have enough savings that they don't see that you need money. So that I think from those friends that I speak with, right? Yeah, and they'll say, okay, you have no issue. I'm sure you have a lot of money to stand by. That's not an issue to you because you're from the corporate world. That's and in the financial side, right? So when you tell them, no, actually it's very hard to survive, right? Like for me as well, I still need to pay my bills, right? Yeah, and then they'll say, okay, well, I think not a problem. Anyway, it's a social enterprise. Why don't we just get a grant? So the way how they look at many things is all encompass of what they see from news articles and stuff like that lah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
right.
like for yourself, like how was it? How was that journey on how people? Yeah.
I think even until today, people ask me, "Can make money, man? You got collect pay and all." I met one of my customer who I just had a big pop up last 2 weeks, and then I had this customer. She came up to me and she said, Randall, I've been following your journey since you were selling books outside of out of your grandfather's bedroom. That's how I first started selling. I sold books on Carousel, and I always told this story. I started selling books on Carousel in my grandfather's bedroom, and every week I would, if you sell something on Carousel, you go to the MRT station, and then at the gantry there, you would pass the book to someone else. And she said, I used to buy books from you at the MRT station, and you always share with me your story. And I always thought, I don't think he will last 1 year. Not in a sense like I'm not capable, but she's thought this is not a sustainable business at all. And she said, after all these years and seeing you continue doing and growing the brand and stuff like that, she's really, really amazed how I can be still doing what I do. And I think even until today, people still ask me you got take salary or not? Even until today, my mom still asks me, you got pay CPF or not? So I think that's the number one thing that people are they perceive of one working in the social space, whether it's a charity or social enterprise. And I think this is also one of the biggest learning that I've learned starting on going on this journey. I think in the first couple of years, I never paid myself, and I never even paid CPF. Back then I was so young, but again, right now, if you were to ask me, yes, you need to pay your CPF. That's the number one thing you need to do, all right? And I think people have this perception people who work in this social space or charity space, they don't pay themselves. But I think if there's one thing I want people to get out of these podcasts is even if you work in the social space, you should be paid in a market rate, or even better if possible. But I just think that it's very, very difficult. And but we need more good people to be in this space. Otherwise, there's not going to be enough people doing the good work like you are doing right now. So but that's, again, it's a big challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that we all need to be paid lah. I'm not paid as well, right? People are still asking the same question you are now facing, right? I've also faced the same problem, right? Are you sure or not? And they were like, "Never mind lah, you don't have pay lah. No, I'll buy you lunch." You go okay, I can still buy lunch, right? So it's the poor mentality that people would think sometimes,
right?
Out of sincerity. Right, because that's how they view especially when you're a social enterprise, right? You kind of not get paid, kind of situation. And you're right, social enterprise needs to get paid, right? Founders needs to get paid for whatever good work, because it's even more. And I totally agree with you. It should be even more than a market rate because we're doing much more, right? Yeah, it's like a business. Same, you're willing to pay for business for something, but you're not willing to kind of pay a salary to a social enterprise founder, or even a volunteer. We don't talk about even the founder, right? And I think the perception of social enterprise needs to change, and needs to get educated. What exactly is it? Right? People will treat you like you're Galanguni. But even Galanguni needs pay, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think people need to understand that whether it's social enterprise, like you mentioned, the enterprise needs to come first. Without the enterprise, there is no social work, there's no longevity, there's, you cannot actually do much. So it's very, very important. And again, we compete with any other for-profit bookstores or any other for-profit stores out there in my context, right? And we pay the tax, we don't get any grants, you don't get any benefit, and at the same time we still continue to allocate part of our proceeds to support the work where we literally ask people for like money. I would everybody I meet, I would ask them like, hey, can you have donate to my fundraising campaign? We will use all the money and then we would fund whatever projects we want to fund. Now, when I moved into and for me, I don't think that's a wrong model. I just feel like it is not sustainable, at least for me. And number two, I actually really don't like asking people for money. Yeah, the first time, right, when you ask people for money, you do a project, everyone's like, we are doing such great work. Here's $50, here's $100. The second time you do another campaign, people stop picking up your calls. So, I actually felt very tired of fundraising. So I knew that if I were to continue running a charity in Singapore, for me, not sustainable. Plus, again, if for those of you that are intending to start a charity entity in Singapore, right, a lot of work, okay? You need to have a board of directors, you need to do your audits, which a lot of money involved, okay? You need to do audits already a few $1,000s a year. So you actually lose more than you make, which for me don't really make sense. And then when I realized that, again, there was this in-between entity that you could set up that sits between a for-profit and a non-profit, which is again my term of what a social enterprise is where you actually make your own money. Again, like what you guys do, you run programs that you provide a service and people pay for the service because it's actually solving some sort of problem. For us, when we first started, it was selling books. All right, we collect books. And we sell the books. We build our own websites. We now have a store. We found a channel for us to sell the books, and we make the money ourselves. And I feel like when we are able to generate the money ourselves and not beg people for money, we have more rooms to wiggle on how we can use the funds. For example, like people won't say like, hey, you use your money to pay the rent for, like the little shop house in Maxwell, which is where we have right now. But again, if you were to use donors' money to actually get a bookstore in Maxwell, people would be pointing fingers and say, we donate money to you and then you go and rent this shop house in Maxwell. But without that shop house, without that bookstore, our brand we won't get to where we were today. Like people won't find out about us. We won't have the branding that we would like to establish until today. So I feel that for me, being in this social enterprise space, it gives me more room to wiggle and it allows me to grow and have the firepower to compete and stay relevant. And again, we're talking about longevity of a business, right? To compete with any other for-profit business out there. We right now are in a very comfortable space, not financially, but in a space where I feel like I can see longevity. I don't have to rely on people's money. I can figure out how to make my own money because again, when during Christmas period, people love to donate, right? But the first half of the year, nobody wants to donate money as economy is down and stuff. So I understand how difficult it is to run a charity, and I think for us, we now stop collecting any donations. I mean, if anybody would want to donate to us, they can. We still give 100% of the money out, but right now, we allocate just part of our proceeds to to fund the work that we're doing, and then the rest of the profits that we make, we keep the lights on in the store, and we continue to build the brand then that people love today. Yeah, so that's my perception of social enterprise and charity, and why I think, at least for me, social enterprise is much more sustainable unless and again, I think if you're doing work outside of Singapore, right, there's no point running a charity because you cannot get any tax benefit. Yeah, if you take money from a corporate, for example, and the work that you're doing is outside of Singapore, you actually, the donor don't get any tax benefit, and most likely a donor don't want to donate to you, based on my experience. Yeah, usually last time when we were doing charity, right, we got a lot of companies running around say, hey, we want to donate money to you, and they realize that they cannot get
tax rebate. Yeah.
They stop replying the email. And I'm not afraid to say that because we've gotten so many emails like that. A lot of companies that out there, they, I'm not saying all of them, all right, but there are certain companies that do want to offset, their taxes and stuff like that. So they, want to part away some of their proceeds, which is not a wrong thing. I think the system is set up to be that way, but I think again, when we have like one or two companies that just want to do that, and then they realize that, hey, they cannot get rebate, they don't want to do that, then again, there is just no point. So if you're doing work outside and you want to run a charity, I would just recommend you, for anyone who is doing, to just start a social enterprise. It's just much more sustainable from my experience.
I think it's the same when I look at it from the social enterprise angle. When you are a volunteering organization or not-for-profit, right? Like you said, companies, corporates, individuals, when they donate, basically tax rebate. I think that's the biggest gap that I can see from my experience as well, right? When we are talking to people, even when friends will maybe ask whether, there's rebates and stuff like that, right? And you kind of like, okay, so it's really not out from really what you want, or maybe you just have different objectives as well, right? And like you said, sometimes it's only just one time off and that's it, right? I think that's the biggest for me in terms of seeing how people look at it. Corporates, even you ask them is, do I have a tax rebate? And social enterprise, you'll tell them like, I'm sorry, we don't have, right? Because the system is set up this way. For us, that's why the social enterprise going to trainings, going to other things and impacting whatever is the income, that we can, then that's how we can also channel to all your beneficiaries, similar to what you're doing right now. I think that's what I'm also facing. And if you are getting funding as a not-for-profit, there are certain criteria that you need to go along, right? To fulfill the KPIs when you get funds. So, and that's not what we want, right? Because you kind of like no say in what you're doing. You kind of being dictated to what your funders or your grants are moving towards too, right? And if the grants are cut off, I think that's where there's no longevity in the business that you really want to impact. Right, the people that you want to impact in your business. That's how I look at it in terms of how different it is. And so not for profit, I think it has its own perks, but social enterprise is we do have our own say, right? We can pivot faster. I think that's the main thing, right? We can kind of like change certain things that we want to do. But one question I'm a bit curious is, why would you pick a place where your books are at that location?
You mean like in Maxwell?
Yeah, in Maxwell. I'm just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so we used to have a location in Marymount. It's a warehouse. That's where we kind of started. And then one day I just decided that I always had a vision that we don't want to be known as a bookstore. We want to eventually grow beyond a bookstore that people know us for, which is selling like used books. We want to be known for a brand that people love, where they come to get inspired, where we share good stories. And I know that if I want to do that, I need to elevate the brand. And also I want to introduce like new things into the store. So for example, if you have a chance to go into our bookstore today, you'll find that we don't only sell books. We actually have a range of handmade gifts that we sell there, made by some of the women that we work with very closely in Nepal. And we are right now, I think, also the space where we get a lot of access to corporates and tourists and stuff like that. They know that we are not a thrift store. And that's something, again, one thing that I don't want to be known for, I want to be known for a place that it's more like a lifestyle brand that is a little bit more elevated. So I found that space, it was beautiful. It has beautiful big glass window, and it fits the kind of profile that we want to be in, the community that we want to be in. Although it's a lot more pricier, but I feel like it helps with the brand and allows us to get to where we are today. Hopefully we'll be there for the next couple of years, because the rent is rising and all that kind of stuff. So for now, I think we are okay.
I think that's a very beautiful place. Like you
said. Have you
been there? Yes, I've been there.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. That's surprising to know.
Oh,
okay. So maybe I'll throw you one question, right? Like for me, when I came on this journey of doing what I do, it was a very personal journey. So usually people ask me like, why do you start this organization? Why do you want to decide to help the Nepalese people and stuff like that? It was really about my own personal story. I was struggling with, confidence issue. I was having anxiety, and that whole personal issue took me to a solo backpacking trip to Nepal, and then eventually figured out, and slowly doors started open and the path became a little bit clearer on what I want to do and led me where to I am today. So I didn't start out saying like, hey, I just want to do good. To be honest, if I was to be very honest, I've never volunteered in my life. Unlike you, I've never volunteered in my life. I've never donated a cent in my life before I started doing this. It was just a pathway of me discovering myself. But for you, were there any part of your story where it was about you and then, you decided to move into this chapter of your life? Or you have always been very, a person that has always wanted to be in this space?
Always been, maybe it's partial, I would say. It's always curiosity, right, for myself. And if I were to look back, I've started volunteering maybe more than 10 years. Yeah, running different organizations. But when I look at it, there's so many volunteers and organization, right? What sticks me very well is really about the youth, especially women. Maybe I have a heart for women.
Why?
Maybe through articles you have read, people who have abused, people who are neglected, and majority are women. So I have this like very feminist side of me, right? That I feel that I need to support. Right. I've done mostly volunteers with more to women, children, because they are our future, no matter what, right? The youth, the young ones.
Don't flush just yet. We've got an ad coming up. Hey Ping, so this season on Clean Our Toilet podcast, we are telling stories that we don't often get to hear and that often don't get told. Right, the quiet ones, the overlooked ones, the ones that don't always make the headlines. So that's why for this season we've chosen to support social enterprises.
So important.
Very, very important. And a lot of some of these meaningful stories, they aren't always told through words. It can be through like the crafts and the products and the services that are provided by these enterprises.
Yeah, so whichever our listeners are going to support is really supporting the underserved.
That's right.
So, one of these stories that we want to talk about comes from Pranama.
Yep.
Right, so they are a Singapore-founded slow fashion social enterprise. Right, what does that even mean? They're actually built on environmental sustainability and also social impact. So their products are actually designed and also not just about style, but it's also about livelihood, dignity, and education for women and children across Asia.
Correct.
Which I think is important because, again, these are the group of people that we want to kind of uplift, especially with the discrimination that they face in their own countries.
That's
right.
So they also do upskilling programs and educational outreach, and they teach about sustainable production practices. Yeah. So a lot of Pranama, what they do is they transform waste products into purpose. So they rescue inner tube tires or single-use plastics, and these are the materials that they use to remake into things like wallets, card holders, even clutches, and purses as well.
Wow, I wonder how it looks.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
Yeah, people should, if they want to find out, they should go to the Instagram or the website shoppranama.com to go and take a look at some of their products.
Yes, correct. So this season we want to amplify voices of communities, right, that are often unseen and unheard. And I think Pranama really aligns with our vision and what we want to achieve here, right? Because impact is not always about looking loud. Sometimes it's about the impact of being consistently and sustainable. And I think that's what they stand for. Correct.
We're doing a giveaway with them, right? So they're giving away one Charlie Pocket wallet. So this comes from the collection from Pranama. So it's a minimalist, thoughtfully crafted wallet that is handmade and is done by skilled artisans from Central Java. It's even a PETA-approved vegan product.
So to take part in the giveaway, right, please comment on any of our social media platforms, CYT Pranama. Right, and we'll pick one very lucky winner. So each comment will give you an opportunity. Right. The more you comment, the more you get.
Yes. So if you're curious to learn more about Pranama's work, not just what they make, but also why they make it, go and check them out online. They are fully online presence to really keep their carbon footprint small.
Nice.
And to really think about this question, like, what are we really doing for others? Now back to the rest of the episode.
So with that, I run from different organizations. And along the way, I just felt that besides just volunteering, can I do something that there is a better, maybe I will use the word control, in what I really want to drive towards to. And that's how my journey kind of start, right? In terms of being in this social space.
Right.
And that's where I think I could make a difference in terms of the impact that we can do. Because when you're doing organization, you're just being led to do something, right? And half the time it's just either you're a befriender, you go for one time, but what's the longevity of doing this? Right? For us, we work with the homes or the underprivileged, right? We run consistently for 10 years with the same organization. You can see how they grow. Right? They have their own voice. They are more equipped. Like you said, there's a lot of inner struggle that you can you feel happy, right? That you see them grow and have a voice for themselves and coming out from their own inner struggle as well. So that's what it kind of lead me unconsciously.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's a little bit different from my story. As I mentioned to you, I think for mine was a bit more selfish, like I think for your story is more like you were exposed to these projects and programs, and it slowly kind of like inspired you to get involved and stuff. But for me, I think I'm totally opposite from you. I've never been exposed. I've always my dream back then was to be a millionaire. I want to make money and then I can quit my job and then fly everywhere and then don't have to worry about money, because I don't come from a very well-to-do family. We had to always at home think about how to kind of like survival and pay the rent and stuff like that. So for me, success has always looked like having a lot of money and be financially free. So that was what my intention was. But I think when I had to go through that quarter life crisis and had to battle with the different like my self-confidence, my anxiety and stuff like that, then it pushed me to go and seek for a bigger purpose beyond what I thought success would look like. And going to Nepal and seeing what really happened beyond our borders really gave me that window to look like, hey, maybe this is something you can do. So that was my journey on how I actually got into this space. It wasn't really like, hey, from young I've always been going to volunteer and stuff like that. So it was quite interesting to on how I got on this on this journey. And how for you, like what would your next, how will you look like, what does success look like to you right now? And then I can share you mine, because I sometimes I feel quite like I shared earlier in the podcast, I still even until today find it a bit difficult to share that, but I want to be more vocal about it.
What would success look like?
Maybe not now, but in the next couple of years, and you'll be like, that is exactly where I want to be in life right now. I feel I'm successful and I can, yeah.
That's a very interesting question. Sometimes actually I didn't really think to that extent. Yeah, I kind of like, okay, if today I can impact or tomorrow I can impact one more person, yeah, that is a success to me. Yeah, not like, like 10 years down the road. Maybe for me, it's more immediate. Yeah, every step that I do makes a difference, not just for myself alone. For example, if I can pay my bills, I can have a stable income. Yes, right? A monthly stable income, that's one. Yeah, that would be successful, that everyone is paid in the social enterprise space. Yeah. But then again, the next immediate is, if I can impact one more, serve one more, why not, right? While still being able to pay my bills, right? I think that's the important, because we still need to eat, breathe.
Yeah, I agree. I think for mine it's a little bit similar to yours. Like being not successful, I share with you what being not successful will look like for me. Being not successful is if I get to change a lot of lives in Nepal or whatever good I'm doing on right now, but having to then struggle financially at home, that to me is not a successful life. That I know that I will eventually not be happy with where I am. I think for me, success is being able to balance both, being able to continue to do the good work that we're doing, but at the same time, not putting the pressure that, hey, we need to change so much life. Like you mentioned, even though if it's just one life and one person, whether it's she get educated or change her life and whatever, that to me, it's, if I know that's the best I have done, that again is success to me, while juggling, not having to worry, and I can take care of my family. I think having to balance that would be something that I'll be very, very satisfied and fulfilled. Yeah. And that to me would be what I would deem like successful.
Yeah. I think it's really striking the balance that is very important.
But I sometimes do feel like I'm again, I think just because of the connotation of how people would view, like people in the social space, I think like I do sometimes, want to have a nice little car, want to have, like I mentioned, I want to have a nice house and stuff like that. And I think along the years of being in this social space, I realized that you can still do that. You can still have a nice home, have a nice little car, live comfortably while doing, the good work. And I think, again, that is like kind of my goal for the next couple of years. It's how can I continue to build up both sides, again, doing the good work that we're doing, and then also find other different ways on how we can continue to impact, again, not just people, but also be financially stable. But I even until now, I still struggle with that. Yeah, it's a very difficult combination to balance. Yeah, it would have been much easier to just lean on one side, just focus on making money, and then
just stay in a comfortable job.
Yeah. But I know that, again, my friend always asks me, hey, why don't you just get a 9 to 5? You definitely earn much more than what you are doing right now. I know that I will not thrive if you put me in an environment where I cannot express and do the things that I will bring most meaning to my life. So that's my goal for at least for the next year or so.
I think the system needs to change. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think the education, between the difference needs to be brought out. So that people do understand, right? Between the difference between a not-for-profit and a social enterprise. I think that is, I felt is the biggest gap, right? And people always think that, it's just a charity and therefore you don't need anything because you have enough, to get by. And they never know that there is this, there's this imbalance, I would say, that is still happening in social enterprise.
Yeah. Okay. So what is maybe one thing that you feel like you wished more people would know about you or the work you do, but people actually don't really know about?
That's a very tough question.
Is there anything that
I guess
comes to your mind?
The podcast will help. I think when people through interviews, through things like this, right, do help to spread the words. Because there's so much social media now that you can also do. Right. That's maybe one part of it. The perception. I think everyone needs to be educated in a way, right from young. Or maybe at least to be part of, if you want to use the word education, because we grew up like just struggling and just having a paid job, right? Even you want to do good, it's just like, okay, that will come later. So I guess that's one. But how about yourself?
For me, I feel like if there's one thing that I want people to know, which I think some of the people who are close to me don't really know, is that I think I covered it just now, like being in the social space, I still have aspiration to be successful in like different ways. I'm still very motivated, again, not just to continue to make more impact, but also being like financially free. And I think again that really comes from a different phase of life where I am right now. When I first started Books Beyond Borders, I was 25, 26. I had no pressure of taking care of family. Now I just got married. I was married this year. I am moving to my new home. And I always bring this up with me and my wife, like and I always tell her that as much as the good that I want to do in the world, I want to make sure that we never ever have to feel insecure about money, because if, and I always say this one thing, is that we cannot give from an empty jar, right? If your jar is empty, there's the more you give out, the more empty you feel inside, and it's only when your jar is full then you can continue to do more. So I think, again, for me, and I know that there are a lot of people out there, maybe your founders would have been in the same position, who are doing great work and stuff like that, that it is nothing wrong to have goals of being, financially free and, continue doing the good work that they are doing. So that's, I think that's one thing that people don't really know. And I don't really say it out loud, but I think, now I need to manifest it.
Okay. Yeah. I think we need to be kind to ourselves first before we can be kind to others.
Yeah.
I think that's my takeaway. Being a social enterprise, because we tend to be like unkind to ourselves first. Yeah. In a way that, like you said, we don't say that actually, we need to get paid. We need a house. This is what I want. Right. I still have my dreams. Right?
And I think it's nothing wrong to say it. I think more people, especially us in our space, need to be more vocal about it. Like, doesn't mean that, hey, you're in this space, you cannot actually have, these kind of goals and stuff like that. It is so important to make sure that we are taking care of that, so that we can then continue to, excel and focus on doing the good work that we're doing. It don't make sense that when we are spending all the time doing the good work, but when we get home, we are worried about our own selves, so that's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, agree.
So I think before, we kind of wrap up this entire podcast, is there anything that you like to share with with one important message you want to share with?
Be kind to yourself before you be kind to others too.
Okay. Again, for me, I think if there's one message, or if I want to share with anyone who's listening on this podcast, would be, and again, this is my own personal mantra, but I always share this with people who I meet, people who are struggling with something on their own, whatever it is that I challenge all of you to do like one thing that scares you every day. You don't have to be going to climb the tallest peaks in the world or doing something really, really crazy, but it could be like, let's say if you are afraid to, I don't know, maybe drive or take up your driving license, you could maybe overcome the fear and, go ahead and do it. Whatever it is, my personal challenge to everyone is that to go and figure out what's one thing that scares you and go and do it. Because for me, that changed the entire trajectory of my life. It opened up a whole new world for me. It allowed me to, start whatever I'm doing right now and get to where we are. So that's one message that I like to leave to everyone over here.
Thank you.
So I believe we are almost at the end of where we are going already. So if I would like to just maybe thank everyone for tuning into this episode of Clean Your Toilet podcast. And if there is, again, just one message, I believe we all shared that one message really is, and again, I'm going to wrap it up with saying that our own stories are actually really, really powerful. And in my case, my story, again, isn't just about, raising money for all of the kids in Nepal and then building a school library and stuff like that. I think my story and why it's so powerful, and I've came on different podcasts and talks and stuff like that, I always start with my own personal story, is when I am able to open up and be vulnerable about my own struggles in the very early stage of building this brand, it allowed people to resonate with me, and then allow me to grow and build a community of people who think just like I do. So your story is very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing your story with me. And hopefully our stories can be of some inspiration to whoever that's tuning into this Clean Your Toilet podcast. So
Thank you
so
very
much,
much.
Brenda. Thank you. Your transformation starts with inner work. You guys can take your first step now, and or you can kickstart inner work journey by acknowledging and sharing your untold stories with us today. All right. So if you guys have any stories, you can. We'd love to hear it. So hopefully this podcast can inspire you guys to kickstart your inner work journey by acknowledging and sharing your untold stories with us today. And by sharing your own personal stories, you can impact someone. Maybe you can't really see it today, but I know someone would be impacted by it one way or another. So share your story.